Hey everyone, thanks for joining. Here with Brandon again. Want to do a cool little series of videos here. We're going to do a few short ones. Obviously, they'll come out in segments. We've got a ton of topics that people have, left below, commented on some of the videos, messaged us directly, things like that. So, gonna go over a few. But first things first, Brandon, how are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Yeah, good, good. TGIF or whatever it is.
There it
Friday.
is.
So things are good. No complaints, but
Have to complain about a Friday.
exactly. Well, here, so we got a lot of questions around what was your guys' selection criteria, but also just more in what advice would you give someone who seems like an experience? I mean, you're an experienced venture investor. What would you give someone who is maybe newer to the markets? Of course, this past year has exploded with a lot of new people into the industry and buying stocks, which has been fantastic. But people always looking for advice. So wherever you want to start, would be cool.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting, right? Investors, whenever you start off, you're never going to be an expert across all industries, right? And so obviously, you pick a couple industries that you want to focus on, and you eventually, hopefully, become an expert, right? But I think what we did at Steve Nash Enterprises very early on was we realized that we were never going to be experts at everything, right? And so if we were looking at an investment or a category that we didn't really know as much about, the easiest way to get kind of up to speed is to partner with someone who had done it very well in the past, right? And so one of our biggest focuses was, we wanted to find the folks who were the best at something and partner and kind of work with them, right? And I'll give you an example. One of our investments actually that is going to go public here in the next couple months is a company called ShareCare, right? And so ShareCare is a digital web platform, right? But I think what's interesting about that company is, when we invested, it was really about who was the team behind it, right? The main founder was a guy named Jeff Arnold. Jeff Arnold had started WebMD, right? One of the biggest telemedicine or health platforms out there, right? And so again, we were going to never it's really tough to know everything about the health and wellness space, but to partner with a guy like that, like Jeff, who had the credibility and who had built things like that before, that was the easiest way for us to get kind of up to speed, right? When we looked to start our own fitness clubs and invest in the fitness club space, we partnered with a guy named Mark Mastroff, who was the founder of 24 Hour Fitness, right? And so, again, we're never going to be experts in everything. But when you're not an expert, I think you want to find those who are and kind of follow their lead. And that's certainly the advice I would give to kind of new investors, right? Is follow those who have done it in the past, right? I think they're a great source of knowledge. They've done things and certainly made mistakes in the past, and they kind of learn from those mistakes. But to be able to work with those who are experts in any field is really the key.
Yeah, interesting. Any people you'd suggest? I know up here in Canada, obviously mining related, everyone says Eric Sprott, but curious if you've got any people you'd say, hey, like look at the Buffetts, look at this. Like, what's your list of, hey, these people are probably worth a follow on Twitter?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd have one specific recommendation, but I think that it's kind of if you want to invest in an industry, really see who the titans are in that industry, right? Who are the leaders, and just begin to kind of learn from them, right? You don't have to make an investment day one, but I think starting your learning process day one is kind of key. And so, learning from those, following those, listening to those who have really excelled in the industry historically is a great point. And then you'll be able to kind of find your way from there.
Yeah, we get a lot of questions. I would love your kind of feedback. We get people that ask, more so for like, I say super venture, under 100 mil market caps. What are your top factors? And in theory, people say, oh, look at the team. What have they done before? I probably took your first one out of your mouth. And then what else would you look at? And I know, hey, industries aren't apples to apples, so it really depends on what you're looking at. Of course, mining, cannabis related, whatever. But maybe we want to use a cannabis type example of, hey, the team, this, and this. Would love kind of, I guess, to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, no, you're right. I would say the first one is team, right? I think that especially, the earlier stage of the company, the more reliant you are on the team, right? A company like, McDonald's or Apple, they're not necessarily going to be relying on any one specific person, or to be honest, any couple specific people, right? The industry, the business is so big from them that, it can handle the ups and downs of team and people. But when you're looking at early stage companies, it really is about the team. You can have a great idea, you can have a great brand, but if you don't have the team to execute, a lot of that is just going to be waste, right? So I would say team first and foremost is huge when looking at kind of early stage companies. The next is kind of that competitive advantage, right? I think competitive advantages can come in many different forms beyond just the team, right? Do they have tremendous technology that allows them to make products cheaper, faster than their competitors, right? Do they have a process that allows them to take advantage of various opportunities that are going to make them stronger? Competitive advantages can also come in the form of brand, right? Do they have a great kind of consumer brand and great following and great reach that allows them to, create more products, sell more products, et cetera, et cetera. So, I would say that, team is the first thing that you kind of look at. And then, secondly would be, what are their competitive advantages that are going to give them an opportunity in the future to kind of beat out their peers.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. Especially on that last point, look at what makes them better. Why will they be better? Team's important. Insider ownership, all that stuff, relatively speaking, important. You definitely want to be investing in someone or something that, the founders are also, there to benefit from its growth. So I definitely find all those things as important. But cool. Anything else, about some of the investments you made, alongside Steve that you want to kind of mention that are just general interest? I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, that's just cool to hear." So
Yeah.
curious if you got any on the top of your list.
Yeah, I would say the Indochino is a great one, right? I think that when
Talk to me about that success. Like, if you can give, I don't even know if you can give numbers, but like, they came to you. Were they like ground zero? I just so curious.
yeah, when I first met the guys from Indochino, I remember it was I came into a Yale Town boardroom and they were kind of all huddled around, and they had a tremendous idea, right? They wanted to kind of streamline this custom suit idea that a lot of folks go to China, they get custom made suits, but there's a big barrier to entry there. You got to fly there, you got to know where to go, you got to have the time, all these things that don't make it efficient. And yet you can go to a luxury retailer and pay 5-6 times the price for a suit, right? So how do you get that kind of same custom experience at a price point that isn't outrageous, right? And so I remember when I first met them, I thought this is a great team, these guys are hungry, but it was a boardroom, right? So I would say that you can't always judge a book by its cover, right? But they had something, they had a concept, and they had a team that I thought was really interesting. But I'll say that the company has evolved a lot, right? When they first kind of gave me the instructions of, hey, go through the process yourself, be a customer, get a suit measured, and then have one sent out. I was like, great. So they said, all right, get a measuring mechanism and measure yourself at home. Follow the instructions online, and then we'll send you a suit. So I get back, and I don't have a carpenter's tape or
Yeah.
anything like that. And so the best thing I had was a metal measuring tape, right?
Nice.
So, just think of like, out there construction style measure tape. I'm trying to wrap it around my arms. My wife is trying to help me, do this, do that. It was a complete nightmare, but it was all, my nightmare, right? I was supposed to get kind of a proper measuring tool, and I certainly didn't have one, and so I got the suit back the first time. It was completely off, right? The arms were too
It's got a
short, the
little
legs
bend
were too
here, a
short.
little
Oh,
bend
it
there.
was. And again, I realized at that point, like, it was all user error, right? I had taken a metal measuring tape and expected that I was going to get precise measurements, right? The output is only as good as the input that you have in, right? And so just such a great learning experience that sometimes you have to do it right in order to kind of expect the right outcome. I can say now that the company is grown tremendously, right? They're one of the leaders in the custom suit space, and you can kind of find them everywhere. But what all started off in a kind of Yale town small boardroom has now grown into a massive, massive success, and one that can be proud of.
Yeah. Awesome. No, hey, crazy story. That's awesome. Eddie, I know we've been on for a while, but I gotta ask, is there one other one that you want to talk about or mention?
Yeah, I think that it just comes down to kind of trying to combine personal
Was
interests.
there any sports stuff? We got that question. It's like Steve Nash. You'd think he'd be investing in sports, but no, it's custom suits and other things. So curious.
Yeah, yeah, I will say that while Steve was a tremendous basketball player, right? One of his true passions was soccer, right? And so,
Wow.
it's funny, I think in many ways, when you look to invest, you want to look at growth, and you want to look at industries, and you want to see kind of, where you think the world is going. But at the same time, you also want to combine that with your personal interests, right? It makes it more interesting. You become more knowledgeable. It's just more fun, right? And so one of those kind of crosshairs was soccer, right? It was a passion for Steve. He truly loved the game, the sport, but he also saw that soccer as a whole was just really kind of getting going here in the U.S. And so one of the early investments that we made was in the Vancouver Whitecaps, getting them to kind of join the MLS. Again, it's been a great investment because soccer has grown tremendously, right? But I would say that kind of combining that kind of global kind of component of where you see an industry going, combine that with your personal interests, and oftentimes it can make for a very successful investment. So I'd hate to say that it was just solely our belief that soccer was going to grow as a sport. Certainly, it had to do with a lot of personal interest from Steve as far as what some of his passions were.
Brandon, thank you. I'm sure we'll talk again soon. Anything else you want to leave people with?
Yeah, no, this was great. Again, I think feel free to ask questions, and I'm happy to always jump on and kind of provide insights, whether it be about our company or the industry as a whole. Happy to serve as a resource.
Awesome. Well, Brandon, thanks so much. Enjoy your weekend. We'll chat again soon.
Sounds great.